and then he'd go change into a mask and wrestle as whatever, and then come back.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Nice.
Okay. All right, we'll call this meeting of the Decatur Township Board to order. If you rise with me for our invocation. Pastor Tim Lindsay couldn't be here this evening due to some other engagements, so board member Anthony Parks will lead us in our invocation.
Thank you, Lord, for this blessed day to continue serving you and Decatur Township. We ask that you be with our brother Greg in his time of need. Your word teaches us that for those you call home, it is a time of complete joy, unburdened by the world, and that it is a time for sorrow for those who have lost their loved ones. We ask for your wisdom and guidance to continue serving you during this critical time in our nation, and ask for your forgiveness for any mistakes we may make. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. So board member Hibbler is not here with us this evening, and we express our condolences to him and his family in the passing of his mother. Also, I just wanted to mention all the flooding that happened last week up north, and then through the weekend in Indianapolis. A lot of our Hoosier citizens are going through nightmarish things right now, and appreciate everybody out there that's helping them. And I appreciate the Decatur Township Fire Department over the weekend who was preparing for the worst, but thankfully it didn't happen in our area. And that relief comes with a tinge of sadness for those that it did affect. So I just wanted to mention that before we start. Okay, the agenda was distributed to all members. Are there any additions or edits to note to the agenda?
I do have a resolution.
Mr. Chair, I do have a correction.
Yes, sir.
On the notice agenda sent out, I did in the typographical error indicated that the salary workshop for the 2026 budget is actually the 2027 budget.
Yeah.
I did get that corrected though on the legal notification requirements as far as the board goes,
Gotcha.
posting goes.
Could you repeat that again?
So under new business, which it indicates on the agenda sent out to y'all, everyone at the table, that be the 2026 budget / salary workshop.
Mhm.
It should have read the 2027,
Uh-huh.
but on the legal required posting for the meeting, I did get that corrected by the time and deadline.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so that is an amendment. Noted.
I have a resolution as well that we can discuss. I don't know what the number will be on it, but related to itemization of estimates for the budget. So if we add that to new business.
Okay, so you have a resolution you'd like to introduce that's not on the agenda?
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a second on that to change the agenda to include Jared's resolution?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we'll stick that on new business after what's already scheduled. If that works.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Were there any Decatur Township taxpayer comments?
No.
I guess I got ahead of myself about the meeting minutes from last meeting were distributed to all members via email. Thank you for that, Anthony. Appreciate all your work you do on the meeting minutes.
Thank you.
I have a hard enough time figuring out what's going on. You're over there writing it down, so I appreciate that. Are there any additions or edits to note to the meeting minutes? Okay.
For point of clarification, in board member Parks absent for the executive session on July 9th. I took the minutes
Oh,
and submitted
that's a
them.
good
Okay.
You should have them in there, so I just want for record to reflect that both are being approved
July 9th exec session
in July 30th. Yes. I presume they were approved, but for consideration. For
Yeah, so the
approval,
July 9th was the exec session. July 30th, though, was a
regular.
public regular meeting.
What's the amendment needed?
It's not an amendment. I just want to make sure we have the record clear that the July 9th executive board meeting and the July 30th public township board meetings minutes are being considered.
Okay.
And I presume approved if you, by your acclamation.
That brings up a point. If at any point at any time anybody would like the meeting minutes read, please let me know. Or, we started doing it this way just to kind of move along through meetings, but if you'd like the meeting minutes read at any time, it's always available to be done. So we're going to approve the July 9th executive session and our last meeting minutes from July 30th. All right. Is it? Okay. All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes and adopting them into the record?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Great. All right. No taxpayer comments. Old business. Inspection fees. I assume we're not talking about that tonight.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll skip that and get into new business. And those are the formalities of the meeting. Opening. I'll leave it over to you. Thank you, Mr. Trustee.
All right, so you were sent, and in the packet really are two pertinent documents for the point of discussion. One is this, well, both are spreadsheets. One is a spreadsheet indicating what our suggested compensation is for what we would suggest be included in the 2027 budget for salaries and the like for next year. And if I may, I guess sidebar and sidetrack a little bit, going back to the early 2000s and earlier than that when I was on the board, I think we've for the last 30 some years taken a stand with the budget cycle, a multi-step approach in the regard that, unlike some other townships and required by basic code, we first have a budget workshop or a salary workshop where we discuss salaries, reach a consensus, as I think was typically been done, and then that's taken back and plugged into the budget forms as required by the state and by our accounting software system, and then brought back with an introduction at a later time. I don't have the schedules in front of me, but some of that is already pre-scheduled. And then once that's produced and we go through line by line and explain, what the difference between A and B is from year to year and that type of thing, then we move forward with the next meeting, which is a required public hearing. To do that as well, by law, we have to have a 10-day notice prior to that date. So we try to schedule those things out with the 10 days or more between so we can have that. Then once the public hearing is held, then the board has to have an adoption meeting. Again, there has to be a 10-day period or more lapse between the public hearing and the adoption date. So tonight reflects kind of the first step in those multi-step processes that Decatur has often long at least had in the process for public input and board clarification and that type of thing. So the first step is working with staff, working with the union, working with the other elected officials, the judge in particular. We derive what we think is justification and that type of thing for making suggestions for what compensation or raises in compensation from this year to what would be then next year adopted in the adopted budget. So that's what you have tonight and for you in front of you is this spreadsheet. Working with the union folks and then working with the other township folks and the judge. Our recommendation is a 5% increase for next year for the employees across the board. Part of that is partly because we understand that with the Senate Enrolled Act 1 stuff that goes into effect, pay 28, we do expect some leaner times, and we don't expect that we'll have an opportunity to maybe even do as good as 3%, which have been traditional provided for townships, for the township staff through the course of time. That's the average. Of course, last year, if you recall, we did some kind of major tweaking in the regard that we changed our system of contributing to the public employee retirement, particularly the 77 fund for the firefighters, to where they took now their employee contribution part, but we ran a raise to compensate for that and compensate a general increase in COLA for them, if you will. Traditionally, up until last year, across the board, the township has always paid both portions of the retirement fund for merit and for civilian employees. So the other thing we have done, and I say traditionally, we look at about a 3%. We have done some things in the past too to try to get us in a more marketable position with regard to, particularly in the firefighting realm of things, with what other agencies have paid. The Holy Grail of, I guess, Central Indiana has paid. We're at a point where we think we're pretty much in parity with that at this point, in comparison, particularly to with what we also understand are limited or restrictions to the township with regard to tax base and some of those things. So, again, looking forward to next year, this might, and into future years, 1 to 2%, and we've had that discussion with labor in particular, with the Senate Enrolled Act 1 stuff. 1 to 2% might be a very high good recommendation going forward through those lean years with the effects of the Senate Enactment 1. The second page I wanted to bring to your attention is I went through, I did some comparisons to what kind of real net effect the 4 versus the 3% is. Frankly, a little bit more detailed, I think, than we've done in the past. I even, calculated what the fringes would be, what the difference that would be in some of those things. Mind you, too, with some of the fringes, particularly like with workman's comp, this is based on recommendation. Particularly workman's comp is based on recommendation on the insurance folks of what those rates may really end up being. We won't know those rates till, I think, December, January for workman's comp themselves, particularly. So we do kind of, blatantly, I don't know when I call it padding, but we do have to accommodate for some contingencies just in case some things go up in that. Again, it is a line item within the personnel things, but we do group it all in, and I'll get to that more detail with the next meeting in the introduction. But similarly with the health and life and other benefits in that regard, we are expecting a suggested 15% increase in that regard. So you'll see that in that particular line item. If you again remember about half a dozen years ago, the mandate came from the state that all of our lit dollars had to be deposited into the general fund. Mathematically, that worked out to be about the same amount of what insurance cost us. So basically, at that point, the lit covers the insurance cost, and we pay for all insurance costs that way out of the general fund that way. Specifically, I'd like to bring your attention to a couple points on here. One, if you'll kind of start more at the bottom and work your way up. I want to bring your attention to the calculations for the recommendation for the judges' compensation. Refresh your memory for those that don't know. That is a compensation established to us by the state of Indiana.
Right.
And that is a compensation state based upon the state's fiscal year of July through June. So we're actually today guesstimating what July 1 next year will be. Fact is, for the judges, they did not receive a compensation increase July 1 this year forward. They didn't receive one last year, July to June this year. They did receive, like some of the other state employees did, a bonus, which we paid out already, but So, when you do that, we've kind of traditionally done a 5%. I kind of thought, man, if they haven't had one the past couple of years, would it be higher? So I went back at past years, 23 to 24, it was as high as an 8%. I calculated hopefully worst case scenario was right at a double digit 10%. And even at that regard, you would be looking at a figure of 144,500 some. We budgeted last year for this, and the year before for this, 145,000. So I recommend we keep that at that level based upon all those calculations. Again, we're better to contingency, I think, a little bit than get off card with and try to figure out how we're going to scurry and make things up. The other thing mainly I would like to bring to your attention is if you come up again a few points above that in the trustee's office aspect. Well, two things I'll mention, but one, we've had the IT manager paid for in the fire department fund. I would propose, and I'll get further certainly guidance from a finance advisor, but I would propose moving that to the general fund at this point. Because it is a general office function, if you will. It applies to every township, part of the township enterprise. The other thing I would like to do is add for next year a human resources professional. We have excess of 100 employees at this point in time. There's a lot that goes into managing that, if you will, with regard to benefits and insurance, and frankly, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds because it is a personnel matter, but literally today, myself and two of the chiefs spent all afternoon with the attorney working on an FMLA matter.
Right.
My humble opinion is by the time you pay us to do that, we pay the attorney his fees. Part of what I would anticipate hiring is someone that maybe isn't a legal expert, obviously, but is an HR expertise person that some of those things they can be handled more day in, day out like that than us seeking that specialized attorney guidance for one, and two. Again, like I said, the three of us spend our time on that, not spending time or whatever on other things as well. So I think it's time that for those various many reasons, it'll in the long haul pay off for the township. So that's the long and the short of it. Again, that's our recommendations. I'm glad to address any questions. And again, I know the firefighter union folks are here and the chiefs are here to address some things regarding that specifically. Those matters specifically.
Do we want to hear? Go ahead.
I was gonna just ask on one question. How much are we currently paying per hour for our attorney?
I don't remember what the hour per rate is, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Part of keep in mind. I mean, one of the things that is his expertise is township government. He represents many townships and he's the association attorney. So from those aspects, we're not going to get,
Sure.
And he has farmed some stuff to others within the firm.
And we currently interviewed anybody for the human resources generalist position?
No, I wouldn't begin that until I know it was funded. We'd probably advertise that. Presuming you approve the budget, in the budget, we'd probably start advertising that in December try to get them on board January or soon after the first of the year.
How did you come up with the 75,000 number? Just a market average, or?
Yeah, I mean, you research the job search boards. I don't want to mention any names because I'm not here to advertise for them. And AI for what it's worth.
Sure.
They'll give you the human resources I put on their general should be someone knowledgeable enough to handle those day-to-day things, handle onboarding, handle benefit stuff is the research I found. And you research engine, what should an HR generalist make in Indianapolis? Frankly, the figure is a little bit lower, but again, I'd rather not be caught, that's today. We don't know what the market holds in, and certainly what, you know, as we've done with IT and other, with other positions in the past, when we, not to say we're cheap or whatever, but we do hire what we think is a competitive rate, and if we can get it less than rate budgeted, we do.
Okay.
And at this point, you're saying that some of that human resource function is pushed off onto our attorney because there's legal matters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're paying for human resources.
Like cost savings.
One way or
Right.
another. Yeah.
And I'm guessing, you know, when you have 100 employees, the majority of which are firefighters who work unique shifts, have a unique profession.
There are. Yeah.
Right. So,
But again, I mean, you know, there's stuff like I said, this one, the FMLA matter that, and I've done some research, and I just, you know, I admit I have limitations, and the last thing I'm gonna do is get us in a legal trick bag, and I'm gonna pay for the services, if you will, one way or the other.
right.
I'd rather invest $500 on an attorney fee than a $50,000 settlement in a lawsuit later.
Sure.
You know, my humble opinion, no. Do I expect the HR person to I still would not say we would never have to call upon legal counsel, but I would hope and think, you know, in our due diligence to hire someone that can more realistically deal with those things. Deal with the insurance folks on, you know, again, we get into the situation where we have to report stuff for short-term disability. We've had a couple of employees do that, and there's some trickiness with how you report that, and particularly the trickiness, as you referenced, with regard to the 24-hour on versus 24-hour
Right.
off shift, and what their base is, and what their base with overtime is, and stuff like that. And so, frankly, again, someone that can decipher through that with the base knowledge of HR stuff in the first place. And then, you know, as the chiefs and I have discussed, and Chief Johnson particularly, and he can talk about, you know, these are things that we can, you know, submit to them our policies, and they can then help us interpret or communicate that back out to, when necessary, with employees or with those particular kinds of incidents.
This is right about the average I was seeing online as well. It was between that $70,000 to $80,000 range.
I think I saw some even as low as 65, but
Yeah, they're out there.
Yeah.
So my only other question
sometimes you get
is
what you
there?
pay for.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Is there anything as far as benefits wise that would make us competitive enough to maybe advertise at a $70,000 rate instead of a $75,000?
Well, I mean, I guess advertised in one regard, I mean, it is public record, it's on the books, but for what openings we've had, I don't think we've ever, except for the firefighting stuff, which is kind of par, we've never advertised salary range for one.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't necessarily do that with any posting this way too.
Sure.
But in general terms, to answer your question, as I've elaborated many times before,
Mhm.
I think the township's benefits package, just, you know, despite some of the things, is if not the best, certainly one of the best you'll find. You know, in essence, just off my memory, after a year, civilian, particularly employees, it's 2 weeks vacation. I think there's a little hitch. They got to wait for 90 days to take, but immediately they start gathering about 6 hours total between personal and sick time. You know, there's works out to be 16, 17 between half day here, half day there, holidays throughout the course of a year.
Mhm.
You know, again, we've been fortunate with our insurance premiums and stuff. We've not raised rates on employees for what they've paid for multiple years, which is attractive in and of itself.
Mhm.
It's so low, and I'm, you know, just because it's the family plan and because I have it and I have the HSA, the township contributes $3,000 to a family plan HSA recipient, and the employee premium for the year is $3,400. No one offers $400 or less insurance, so you know we offer. And the other thing isn't, and I mean, I guess I don't want to sound arrogant when this, but these guys will tell you, and sometimes it's more so me beating my head into the wall, but But I'm, when I leave here at 5 on Friday and they're sitting at their desk, I yell at them,
That's true.
right? If I come in on a Saturday and someone's at their desk, I yell at them.
Sure.
I absolutely am a firm believer. We pay you 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, and again, there's reasons, and we'll deal with that if necessary to work in and around those things. But I don't want anyone working outside of hours. I'm not going to expect anyone to do it except for a rare example. So I argue that's a benefit as well.
Absolutely. So with I think those are solid points. And with that said, I think we've got the wiggle room to justify maybe a $70,000 budget for that position, given everything else they're getting. We can afford to be on that lower end of the average compared to the private sector that does not provide the benefits we are offering.
Yeah, that brings up the question. So, it's been a year. So we're not approving this tonight. We're just making our recommendations.
Yes.
You'll include this into the budget.
I think what it's always been done, if you look at the record and the record books, Mr. Chair, actually are right behind you. I think the records show the board has reached a consensus.
Consensus vote, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then from there, it enables us to put in, find in, and particularly, and then fine tune and as much as, again, I haven't necessarily done and presented this early, but then present those extra fringe calculations as well. But I do need the compensation base in order to make those actual compensations and put them in the budget formats.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I say one thing real quick? I just want to say, as we enter budget season, budget season's like hunting season. So, in the sense that we gear up for this, right? So, on behalf of the fire department, I just want to say thank you for everybody coming together collectively, whether it's myself, Assistant Chief Johnson, union representatives that's in the room to talk, bases and things like that. Thank you for taking the time to work with us as we want to work with you for the overall package to ensure that the community of Decatur Township and the constituents are taken care of first and foremost. That's the first priority. So again, on behalf of the fire department and union representation, thank you for allowing us to work with you.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's why we're here, right? It's for the community and making sure you have what you need to do that. So, with that, the union representatives are here who represent the, firemen in that regard. Did you have any comments before we go into discussion, or Mr. Ferris?
Personally, no. Obviously, I'm for the increase across the board. So we're getting higher numbers, more runs we've probably ever had. Since I've been here, my 9th year. Chief and trustee have always done their due diligence to make sure we're not just throwing out random numbers just to say, hey, this is what we're doing. You know what I mean? You can ask Greg. He's been here for 20-some years. We're going up. People are wanting to come here. We're getting great recruits. We've been very lucky lately to get some great recruits the last few classes. Still, there's the lure of IFD, reaching their numbers and that like that. We're not saying we want those numbers. We're just be competitive in the ball field and, be able to do our jobs and have a good benefit package as well. So we're not.
So on that
We've
note,
been very happy with you guys as of recent.
appreciate that.
I can present.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay.
Board Member Parks probably had a question for you or had a comment about, because that's kind of been the benchmark. It seems like this use, like what are they making in IFD? And
Yes, I'll just stand up here so I can address everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out here. This has been a huge year, and I'm personally very excited for the work we have done, appropriating a $15 million fund for the fire department. I was a very vocal supporter of that from the very start. Glad to see it on the way. And, we've got a lot more to go on. With that said, we've got to consider all things because as the board, we have a dual mandate. provide the best service we can for you, and at the same time providing the best service we can for the constituents, practicing both increased service and fiscal responsibility. So I've researched over the information here, sort of the numbers as you mentioned compared to IFD. We don't want lose people and good accrues to them. Currently, and the firefighter levels 1 and 2, at level 1, we are paying about $8,000 more than IFD. Level 2, we're paying about $6,000 more. Now, once you get to level 3, we are a little under them. We're not as competitive. So that is something that's on our mind. We want to make sure for those who have been here with us for a while, we want them to stay with us. And I've got we pulled up the numbers from IFD, compared those. And I've also considered, what is going on with the rest of government, local, state, federal. Currently at the state, it's 0, and that's awful. The federal, they won't finalize it till mid-October, and they might be on a freeze depending on if a certain budget gets approved. And with all the funding we have worked through together to build this fire department, we've got that mandate of tightening up a little bit. So I think it is a consensus amongst the board that in the interest of fiscal responsibility, we cannot approve a 5% raise. We want to, at this point in time, my opinion is one that the trustee recommended, around a 1% raise, so we can balance those two. We want to continue attracting talent, making sure they stay here. But with the appropriations going out with the wheel taxes, they just got approved with the city. The residents going to have our head if we don't show some sort of sign of responsibility and having their side of things respected as well. So I'm open for questions and comments on that.
I'd just like to make a comment on that.
Yes,
Comparison with IFD's pay structure. They're on a 5-year graduating pay scale at IFD. So it takes them 5 years to get to first class firefighter pay.
Mm-hmm.
I believe at the first class firefighter pay level, IFD's got us by $3,000 or $4,000 at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Private firefighter level pay. One other thing that doesn't quite make it apples to apples is the city picks up all 6% of the PERF for the IFD firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
So we're essentially looking at a 12% gap there from our pay scale to theirs, because our firefighters are now paying.
So they pick up the whole thing?
Correct, the whole thing.
How much
our firefighters are paying all 6%. Their firefighters are paying 0% on their PERF. So that does offset the standard salary numbers a little bit.
Sure.
And then there's a 5-year scale versus a 3-year. In my opinion, on why they have a 5-year scale is they can get away with that. They can recruit and retain people through those first 2 years without as much concern of them leaving as smaller departments or fringe county departments do. So just as a point of maybe education for the board members who may not know those things.
Sure.
Those are just the difference between how we and IFD operate as far as salary scale.
That does help a lot. Thank you. Is there any other comments?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Can I offer a point of, I hope, clarification? I want to go on record. I hope I misunderstood you, but I didn't recommend the 1%.
You mentioned a little while ago that 1%. Well, there's
Going
the
forward.
What I
proposal.
think is,
Going forward.
I think moving forward in those leaner years,
1 to 2%.
what I think I said was 1, even 2% would probably be high
Sure.
for what we could do in those lean times, which is part of the reason why I'm recommending 5 now, and kind of we bite a bullet a little bit now instead of, and then that hopefully makes the hit on those lower times better. As an example, and just to give you, when I came in 2020, if you might recall, of all the other problems that life was at that point, that was a leap year.
Mm.
And if you even more, I guess, unique leap year in the regard that there was actually, based upon the pay cycle, a 27th pay for that year.
Mhm.
the board in 19, and maybe Cindy can remember and elaborate a little more, but the board in 19 actually budgeted that full extra pay for 2020, as opposed to say spreading out the regular pay for 27 cycles or whatever, 27 pays. So the long story short, because I went back and looked at that years ago for another matter, that year the township really got a 4% raise in 2020. It then in the trustee in 20 for 21, the previous trustee in 20 for 21, when I came in, had already gone through the salary folks with the board at that time, and the board implemented a 2% increase for 21. So averaged out those years of period, it was a 3% raise each year for those 2 years that way. So I guess that's going to what I'm advocating now. We know similar kind of fashion where we're kind of hitting a higher bullet bite today for, and then we'll have to offset in future times anyway. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It makes sense. I mean, and I would just make a comment. I like to be generous with salary, for sure. I mean, I'd love to give everybody exactly what they want, and what you're saying is what we can, but you have to admit, and over the last year, it's been kind of beat over our heads, all the doom and gloom coming with the budget. Up to the point that we've had to create this new bonding district to fund the fire station, a new tax district, and bond more than we had anticipated having to. We haven't done it yet, but we're going to have to probably bond more than we thought we were going to have to because of this unknown legislation and how it's going to affect us. We've had financial advisors stand in the room and say, look, you guys might have trouble even making budget in years to come. You might have to live off reserves. That hit me hard. I mean, I that really got me nervous about the future of the fire department and how it even goes on. You know what I mean? I know. What I'm saying is that you're saying going forward, we can do 1 to 2% in future years.
I'm not saying we can. We may not be able to do that at all.
Why
Frank,
are we not at that time now? Is what I'm asking. And that we're already asking the taxpayer at the end of this year to take this legacy debt burden that they wouldn't have had to before. But we're and it sounds bad, but we're giving out 4% and 5% raises like there's no tomorrow, which is higher than inflation. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me in that regard that we were told over the last year, like how we got to pinch every penny going forward. But you're saying this year we can still do the 4 to 5%, but in future years we'll have to rein that in. Why aren't we reining it in now?
Well, what I said was we'll project in future years that we may be lucky to do a 1 to 2, if even that is what I said.
We know that's coming. I'm just saying, it's happening. It's happened in the meetings we've had where we've had these financial advisors in here saying to us, you may not be able to make budget in years going forward. And then once you implement a 4 to 5% raise, then you're locked in there. Not like I said, not that I don't want to give these raises out.
Well,
does that make sense to have such a high percentage with the financial uncertainty going forward?
Well, I was trying to explain, but you wouldn't let me finish. At the end of the day, I will just say, this is our suggestion. As the board reaches a consensus, or however you do it tonight, that's what we will utilize.
Okay, I'm a bit confused on that point. That it's been a lot of doom and gloom about how much we're going to be having a shortfall, but we're okay to give out 5% raises this year. I mean, do you agree with that assessment? having looked at the budget, I'll ask the firefighters. I mean, I'm just
Can I say
curious.
something operationally? Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman? Outside of the raise situation, outside of the increase, I think what we're doing now with our budget as a whole, whether it's pay or whether it's operations, I think we're playing quote unquote catch up from 20 years ago that we're trying to make up now. I think a lot of the doom and gloom, if you will, on how it looks is spending those dollars and pennies trying to make up for 20 years in the past of getting our things up to par, up to code, things like that, that recently came to light, I'd say within the last 2 years or so. So we're being very proactive with that. And, you know, as we stated in many other meetings about the budgetary restraints or constraints that we're going under, the fire department side is doing everything we can to manage everything, whether it's reducing supplies, whether it's negating getting fuel at certain times due to expenses. I mean, we watch that, and I watch the budget like a hawk. These guys can tell you. We conduct budget workshops that you guys are always welcome to attend. We have needs assessment, so every penny that we spend that we ask for within a budget, we have a needs assessment. I will not let, and I hate to say it this way, Mr. Chairman, but I will not let the staff request a dollar figure without a needs assessment to make sure that it's the bang for our buck in the sense of what we need, and then the bang for the constituents' buck on what is needed to help support them. So in essence, we're making up for the last 20, 30 years of no fault to anybody, but times have changed. We're up to 2026. And again, that's just speaking overall high level from where we are, the operating budget down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's, in essence, we're trying to get caught up to where we as a department lacked 20 years ago.
That makes total sense. But I mean, you were here when you heard the financial guy saying to us,
I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
you may not be able to even make budget for
You did say that.
years to come with unless there's some resolution to that issue. You're headed to a point where you can't fund yourselves.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that I'm just saying
Absolutely.
what I've heard professionals in this room telling us. You know, and then when you think we're getting this building for $6 million, the bond, the GMP that's coming up for the fire station, and then we're have to open the special taxing district to, you know, pay the bond debt. I don't know. I mean, does it make sense to do a 4 or 5% raise, or would you think that maybe we shouldn't shoot so high this year? I know it's probably your position to ask us for, you know, what you would feel like you need, but I mean, if we're having to tighten our belts in so many ways, wouldn't this be also another place to tighten the belt? I mean, I'm just asking.
I think the perf contribution point does give something else to think about. You know, that is a fact that matters when comparing us to IFD and keeping talent.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you for the most part in sort of reversing what was discussed, where, you know, on one side of talking about a 5% raise and then a 1 or 2% later in the future, you know, and with Senate bill and, you know, us not knowing what's going to happen 2 years from now, I rather err on the side of caution and come down from that now, and then in times when we have more certainty and we know we're not in a position where we can lose everything, and we're in better times, then we can start, you know, raising that up to the 3 and 4 and 5% in the future when we know we can, and we're not in such a rock and a hard place.
Chief Johnson, do you have anything to talk about the step average from 5% down as far as what?
Yeah, so basically the 1% across the board per 1% in total, when you're looking at the personnel line, it's going to be about $1.25 or $125,000. This is total budget impact as it computes into work comp, Social Security, all of the other items that salaries impact, PERF, and so on. PERF is going up to 27%. or 33% next year in Indiana, or the 77 fund is. So that's a 6% increase that's already been established for 2027 that we can avoid
6% more than what you paying this year,
for the employer.
and that's all on the firefighters. We don't pay any
No,
of
no,
that.
no, the employer's percentage.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
6%. So that has no bearing on the 6% of the firefighters pay. That's just the increase that we're going to get 27 in the 77 fund for the career firefighters. The civilian per, I think it's going 14.2 total, and we pay all of that. But in an aggregate of personnel line, every percent salary increase across the board equates to roughly $125,000 total of budget impact. And that's,
Yeah, I noticed that here.
25,000 on the 14 million or whatever it is.
What's this here between 5 and 4%, 250,000?
I think the total difference is about 128. If you look at that bottom number, is that number on there? Can you look at that, please?
Calculate that.
4 to 5 is a $128,000 change total.
You seeing that?
So instead of that 249,
Well,
I would need to see. I don't have the paper you're looking at from me.
well,
there may be some out there.
There's one out there, but also again,
Chief Johnson, it's that.
so
Is that the one you're looking at? Sorry, not this one, but the it says trustee's office at the top.
so yeah, so I'll elaborate because what I presented to
Yeah,
you,
doesn't have a page number. So
Oh, that's fine. We found it. Thank you.
thanks, sir.
what he's calculated is kind of really right down to the wire calculation. I'm calculating or providing to you again with some numbers rounded for contingencies. So again, when, like I say, particular workman's comp, they're suggesting a 10%. It could be higher for one. You know, we have our workman's comp bill each year, but then we also have an audit from the previous year that we have to catch up that year. So like, you know, I just kind of did a rough calculation. Our workman's comp I know I had a better figure. Oh, so our workman comp expense for this year was $357,686. Then I took last year's at the end of the year audit bill of $72,000, which brought us up to $429,686. Again, if we looked at a 5% increase in that, you know, I calculated roughly $473,730 total. I think if we looked at our overall workman's comp budget, like I said, you know, to make sure there's some contingency in there, we don't get hit. It's based upon the number of employees, how they're paid, how long they're paid, what they're paid. So I rounded off to where we'd end up budgeting about $600,000 for workman's comp this year.
I apologize for the confusion.
No, that makes
The
sense.
difference in work comp.
Right,
would be
right.
Less than $10,000 from 4 to 5%. We've got $100,000 difference on the chart you're looking at.
So your calculation is about 250,000 per percentage for the entirety of the.
Well, from the 4 to the 5 is what I
Right.
figured. Yeah, when you know, you contingency some things, you know.
Okay.
I can tell you, you know, the other thing I would tell you specifically in that regard, I mean, we've kind of really been accurate in how we budgeted over there the last few years. I mean, you know, I went back and looked in 2005. This is the end of the year percentages unspent, if you will. In 25 and 24, it was 27% left unspent. Mind you, each of those years, though, too, we had a vacancy of one or the other public relation officer 1 year. We had maintenance person the other year. The court ended up right at 2 both years. Township assistance was 2 and 1%. The fire department was right at 5 and 7%. So when I say, that's why I like to use the phrase contingency as opposed to padding. I mean, where there's always something that would be in there that can suck up some dollars, and so we can't really. You don't want to under budget in personnel, right? I think we've been hitting the mark.
So what's your recommendation, trustee? You have 4 here, you have 5. Have you thought of 3? Have you thought of 2? I mean, what would you want?
I would prefer no less than the 4. And that's why I put the 4 and the 5 on the thing. Again, there's things that, like I said before, I mean, it's an election year, it may not be my argument, so I don't want to sound too presumptuous, but I can look at the, next year when someone comes to me and says, let's get another 5 or 6, I can say, look, you got a 4 or 5 or whatever it was last year. These are lean times, and I'll give credit to the union. I'll give credit to these guys particularly, and to the Indianapolis reps. I mean, they understand the lean times are coming, and so I don't expect that, to be frank with you. But what's done previously is a bargaining chip for future years as well when it comes to salary and other negotiations, frankly.
Unless we don't have any money and have to lay off people. So,
well, I mean, hopefully, I don't think that's the case with this budget and the proposed budget. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think that's going to be the case with the next budget. I mean, again, we do know the lid's going to hurt, and so the property tax is going to hurt to whatever sums that's going to be. My estimation is about $5 million with the lid and what the property tax may be. Of course, the legislature's always did some things this past session that makes it even more hard to understand from 2 years ago, frankly. But but at the end of the day, too, and believe me, I'm a conservative as anyone else. I get paying taxes, but at the end of the day, a $2 million, $3 million, $5 million less budget this year doesn't put any money in that bank that we were talking about earlier for the future contingencies. It does lower the budget this year and lower the tax rate with all variables held constant, with assessed value and those types of things that come into play.
Right.
My estimation.
More.
If you look at the 3, we're probably just a hair under $500,000 increase total.
If we looked at 3,
If you looked at 3, just for numbers for sake. So my estimation, if we looked at it, if we had to get down to looking at a 3, we're in the $500,000 ballpark of a total budget increase.
so 3 is about the inflation rate. So, I'm just thinking out loud.
I think 3.5 is where they've got the projected COLA for 27.
What?
I believe
3.5.
3.5.
Because there's a very structured rank, system here where you move up, and you get paid more as you get promoted, maybe more than in a private business. So there's room to get more salary if you get promoted, right? So, would that be if we kept in pace with inflation, or you said COLA, meaning, can you explain that to cost of living adjustment? So if a 3.5% raise means nothing changed in the cost of living as far as what a firefighter is making today, correct? Next year,
It just as offsets. I think that the purpose of the cost of living percentages each year are just to anticipate the dollar this year is going to be, we're going to need $1
right? Because
next year.
I fully understand if you don't give the raise that meets the cost of living adjustment, it's almost like you're getting a pay cut, next year. And I certainly wouldn't want to do that personally. I just wonder if that would be more practical to meet the cost of living Again, considering all that we've gone through this last year with how much money we're spending.
Just, I would just like the board to consider ultimately, ultimately it's about 125 from 3 to 4.
Right.
125
right.
total from 3 to 4.
Would it lower the tax rate for a Decatur Township resident from 4 to 3.5 by some percentage?
I could not speak on that personally.
You know, if the,
I don't know off the top of my head.
well, I mean, it would just
Well,
mathematically it would, right, to some extent.
talking about the township's tax rate itself or the overall?
The township's tax rate,
I don't know what a percentage would be. Yeah, conceptually it would lower.
right?
Currently, I'm looking at,
Aggregately, again, we don't have control over what other entities do.
Okay.
We know any entity is seeking an above the board or whatever the technicality word would be, referendum on that aspect. We know, I've seen or heard, because I just got introduced a week or so ago with the city plans.
Yeah.
Kind of mainly about the municipal corporations or these other things that go into that overall pie. I can tell you year to year for the last 3 or 4, the overall tax rate for the township has decreased, not necessarily a lot, but by some percentage point to the right of that decimal point.
Okay. So 3.5% is like no one is getting a raise, but no one's getting a pay cut.
well, the current,
That's kind of where that's where I'd like to start talking from. I know we talked less than that, or you had mentioned less than that.
well, it was just a baseline idea. We were looking around the 1% idea, but the current estimated COLA rate for 2027 is 3.6%. And for certain departments, like our armed forces, are looking at a 3.6% increase recommended by Senate going into 2027. So it's right around that 3.6 to 3.8% rate.
Well, if that's the case, you round up, you're at 4. I mean,
So are we showing any fiscal restraint? I guess is where I'm at there. We're, we spend $6 million on a building. We're going to spend $17 million on a new building on this location. We've created a new taxing district for people. State employees overall did not get a raise. Federal employees did not either, and taking all of what has been said already, and then again looking at what the fiscal expert stood right over here, Jeff Peters, and said a few months ago that you need to save all of your money because you might not have enough. And he didn't really like the fact that we were going to spend some out of it to lower the bond amount. You got to save all your money. You got to save all your money. So that's where I'm like, if we see a storm coming ahead, shouldn't we prepare for that now and build a wall now and start bagging some of that money now? And then in 2 years, we say, hey, that wasn't as bad as we thought. And then we're able to then it is a whatever the percentage is at that point, whatever the numbers work out to be. But once we do this 4 or 5 or 3.8 or whatever, we can't go back. We can, but we can't. I got to lower somebody's salary going forward. So I guess I would rather take a small step of even a 1% and then say, let's see what happens next year. And I hate to be the one that's like always kicking it down the road and like, well, we'll see. And then we never do anything about it. But the experts have told us while they stood right here.
So are you advocating like a 1% and then mid-year consider and then maybe adjust at that point? upward?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting part.
So my question is, how do you pay for that at that time?
So that's what I'm saying. I had not thought through that.
Because at the end
part
of the
that.
day, and again, I'm very cognizant of the taxpayer funds, but at the end of the day, simply not taxing it now, not appropriating or agreeing to spend that now doesn't mean you're going to collect it. It actually means the opposite. So you're still, then to your point and something which you might have momo, if you're going to consider that, you're really saying we're going to dip into those reserves again.
Yeah, we have to budget for it.
I'm trying to wrap that around my head too. I'm not sure I quite understand.
Yeah, I don't understand how. I don't get that.
So Mr. Trustee, if you could help me to understand a little bit, you're saying that by not spending, if we decided to spend less or not, it would make no difference in our ability to protect ourselves for future years and to be able to maintain funds and money should we need it in 2028 and 2029.
So the best I can do it, and again, this off the top of my head, and it's don't hold me exact to mathematics, but the point is, hypothetically, the 5% raise may result in a tax rate of, and I'll just go big, 50 cents per $100 assessed value.
Mm-hmm.
A 3% raise may result in a tax rate of 45% or 45 cents per every $100. My point is, if you budget, you're not then going to collect the 50 cents, that 5-cent difference, and bank it for later.
Mhm.
And if you just set that 0.45% tax rate per $100, you're also not to Board Member Bond's point, you're not going to have, and maybe I've kind of put words in his mouth, you're not going to have money come August to adjust without stepping into those reserves we've just talked about for the many reasons to protect.
Yeah, I don't know that I was looking at a mid-year. I had not thought of that, but I like what you're saying. I kind of
misunderstood
understand. But at the next budget cycle, then being able to look at that kind of from a
Well, if you're looking at the
a
next
full
budget cycle
picture.
for like 28, then I'm also going to contend that with everything we've talked about on the table and we know today, that's probably going to absolutely mean dipping into those reserves.
So then we shouldn't be raising salaries. Then we're going to have to dip into these reserves already and
Well,
pay these.
If you're saying do it one now, and if things look okay in 27, pay 28, I really don't think they're going to look at good. That if you're going to look at a 1 now and a 3 later, or whatever the math is you're thinking, I really think that's when you're talking about dipping into the reserves. If we do a 5-4-3 now versus a 1-2, I think we're going to be able to fund that with a tax rate this year and not dip into this reserve.
Because we're taxing people higher.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
Again, whatever the math is, but with a hypothetical example, right?
So I mean, we could make it 10%
Now,
and get away with
and
it.
again, whatever 200, if a 250,000.
I mean, right? The taxpayers are paying for it.
divided
Make it a
by-
10% raise.
Well, that's not what I advocated, and no one advocated that.
And so that's
all.
where I'm having that
Mr.
is looking at that of, where does that stop? I mean, it just gets down to where it's, well, the taxpayers are going to pay it, and we're just going to get into that. So what stops that number? That's where I'm trying to bring it back the other way. I'm trying to save on a tax rate for people that we already have increased their taxes this year, and through the city they're going to get taxed at a higher rate and with a real tax and all these things. That's where I'm at on that. So
Chief, I just want to touch base real quick. And while I respect Board Member Bond's concern, as we all do, we all have to be fiscally responsible. I would yield that, number one, Mr. Bond, and I mean this with all due respect, you have asked me on several occasions to bring your son over.
there it goes.
No.
I told you.
No.
$10.
No.
Told you that was coming.
That's
Now,
an
Brandon.
example of public service, okay? Other people have done the same. What we have is community service, okay? So our guys are up all night long, and what we're going to do is we're going to respond.
Mr. Chairman, the gentleman is out of order.
Well, actually, Mr. Chairman, I
That's,
think the floor was granted to someone and they are actually being, I don't know if that's what's out of
Okay, Jason, thanks. Appreciate that.
Mr. Trustee.
Yeah, Brandon, I saw your email the other day, and
Right.
you pull that a lot on me, and we'll say that. My child doesn't have anything to do
May I-
with this. This doesn't have anything to do with
Well,
this.
if it
And so,
if it has to
It's
do
all
with the
right,
business
I'd
at
like to hear
hand,
from each side one at a time.
it has to-
Sorry.
well, let's just get back to the business at hand.
So am I being neglected this time?
No.
I'm just asking.
As long as it has to do with the business at hand.
It was.
please.
We
Okay.
offer community service.
Yeah.
And it's an example of people bringing families in. What we as a fire department want, we want families to come in. We want to open our doors. We're up all night long responding. I was working over the weekend for the floodwaters. The point to all that is simple. We have to do what's right, whether it's 5%, 4%, 3%. I'm not battling that. What I'm saying is when we talk about, well, why are we going to give them a raise? Why do they need a raise? Well, here's the point. It's not just for us as firefighting personnel. It's not just for the EMT and paramedics. It's for the families. It's for the families at home, because while other families get to sleep, our families are up all night worrying about us on the street.
Right.
Our families wants us to call them at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. We're going on a 2-alarm fire in Plainfield for a hotel. That was firsthand nature. Okay, so my point is we try to open the doors, okay? And you have to understand from a standpoint of the fire chief, if I don't stand up for our people and I don't stand up for the community, which you guys do, you guys are standing up for the community, right? And talking about budgets, I mean, if we want to compare apples to oranges, we may or may not make as much as IFD. I'm not here for that. We may or may not. But at the end of the day, we're in for the same goal, right? Why IFD gets raises and raises and raises for the next 20 years, let's say, we may not. We understand that because we enjoy what we do. We're here for the people. We're here for you. We're here for your families. We're here for that. So the raises, whether it's 5, 4, 3, it's not just for us. It's for the well-being of our mental health and our family's mental health, because the divorce rate, the suicide rate, that is higher than a commercial or political position.
I understand.
And I mean that with all due respect. I truly do.
I don't think
We are a family.
the board is denying those realities.
I'm not
know
saying
I'm
that, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted that to be on the table, that
and this is where I think we find ourselves, at least personally, sometimes, is that you're stuck between a fiscal duty that you're just trying to figure out, and our emergency workers that service the community in ways that are extremely dangerous and needed, and it's so you're walking I've always found this position, and you're kind of walking this fine line of being doing your fiscal duty, asking the questions in the face of a department that is extremely needed and appreciated. And I do appreciate you, and I just hope it's not interpreted that we're saying you guys don't deserve a raise this year. In fact, I'm inclined to say I would at least like to see cost of living. It's just, I think we're been a little bit shell shocked by all the money we spent in this last year, and then you're just thinking about the tax rate. Member Bond had a point. I mean, the Marion County just passed a wheel tax that's going to really hurt people. I don't think they understand what that's going to mean when they pay their registrations, when it's $100 extra per vehicle, per trailer, per boat they have, and so it's, we're sensitive to hearing about people's, I can't pay my light bill, or, groceries are expensive and this and that. So I think that's just where we are, right? I mean, these are tough conversations, especially in the face of what you guys do for the community. And I certainly appreciate that. So I hope you don't think that that's at least the general board's position, that we don't appreciate what you do. So,
And we appreciate you,
Yeah.
especially for the last, what, 4 or 5 years at least.
Yeah,
You
and I
guys
think-
went above and beyond
right.
to help support us.
And
And that's where I come as the fire chief to say, we appreciate that.
and that's
On behalf
kind
of the
of
union, I can't speak for the union, but as a union
That
member,
doesn't make us
we
competitive.
appreciate that.
what's that?
We're being competitive now.
And that's
In the past, we
exciting
weren't.
for
We
me
weren't-
to
we weren't
hear.
getting the guys here
Yeah.
that are here now.
Right.
Better position because of you guys.
And that's a question I had, because it's kind of hard to find that data, because you have a benchmark in mind, and it's the neighboring territory that's thrown out all the time is IFD. So how are you feeling as far as your parity with the competitive rates that they're making? I mean, because I know that we were giving raises that were trying to get you there, right? So do you feel like you've gotten there, or are you
Like
still?
I said, I know our tax base is completely different from them, and they're a huge department. I mean, I got they signed a 4-year contract through 2028. So next year they get a 4% raise, which takes their base to 94,192, and I think currently we're at 87,737 or something. But that's with us paying the 6% of the perp. So really, if you look at that, we're probably like at 83. Base. Then they're 28, they go to 97,959. And like I said, we're not trying to, hey, we beat down the door, we want to be at that rate. We appreciate getting the Kelly days. That made us work
I don't know.
compared to IFD. And like Wayne, Pike, they pretty much make similar to what IFD does as well. So IFD is just kind of what gets thrown out there.
Gotcha.
The Carmels of the world, Westfield's right up there as well.
Yeah, we're not going to
Yeah, I'm
compete with
saying,
Carmel.
yeah, I'm just saying, this is, I think that's just the closest place. It's a Marion County department. We are Marion County. So that's why that gets kind of thrown out there. I guess one thing I've kind of been thinking this, as far as the building goes, you're like, man, we're spending all this money on the building. That building had multiple chances for constituents to come in and talk and speak on that as well. Most people when I was at the meetings were supportive of it, and that's going to be the township's building. Like, it's not going to be,
It's not going to IFD.
and even if say 2 years we get hammered with the $5 million cut and we're like, we're going under, that's still going to be a firehouse that serves this community.
I think that's where we landed also, because we kept going with it. And
At the pension-based level, which is what a lot of, I'm a former union president for Decatur, so I've got into these numbers quite a bit before many of you were serving on the board. But right now, 2026 pension base is worth about an $8,000 gap from the city to us. So much better than it used to be, much, much better. And that has to do with 25-year longevity amounts and all those different things, different fringe benefits that are negotiated separately most of the time. But for these guys, I believe are looking at the retirement package when people take their pensions, what is that calculation going to look like? And that's most important to them. And that's why they decided to take the 6% back into their paychecks last year to raise that number. Okay. So we did the 11 last year, 60% of it being them taking the perk back, or that was a pension-based move. And right now, it's about an $8,000 jump from us to IFD on pension rates. So that's the guy that retired at 32 years at IFD is working off of a 54 or a 76% of 101. Our guys are working off of 76% of 93. So that's what the pension-based numbers goals look like. I think something that doesn't concern me, but maybe I'm not fully educated on it. It seems like this board is having a hard time separating the building project from the 2027 budget. And I understand they impact each other. I get that. But I would just request that the board in the budget consideration for 27, that project that needs to happen maybe consider how much, when it gets down to it, of the cash reserve we're gonna dip for that project. In my opinion, are we gonna, if we dip $500,000 left out of cash reserve for the building, can that offset some of the moves we're trying to make in the budget before Senate Bill 1 hits the township? Something to consider.
Right. On that note, I mean, a Decatur Township taxpayer pays more for their fire service than an IFD resident does. If you look at the tax tables, they do. And that's the reality that any taxpayer can see. I mean, that's where my mind goes when we are upping our budget, is that a Decatur Township taxpayer pays more for their fire department than an IFD resident does. So I understand getting on parity with them, but that would, they're paying more for their fire service than their neighbors do. I'm just, that's the reality. So I'm through this discussion, I would like to see a cost of living at least match. I'm just saying that from my perspective, I don't want to say ours, that's what I see. And then you become sensitive to those numbers, you know, because you do know that your neighbors are paying more for their fire service. And you're like, well, how much more are we going to ask them to continue to pay? You know what I'm saying? Before it becomes like, and somebody notices it's an issue. You know what I mean? That's what I think about. So, do you have something?
Maybe this is off topic, but takes it back to a couple years ago with Senate Bill 54. I mean, I went downtown, I believe you were down there as well, and you had taxpayers come up and say, I want to keep my department, don't merge us. I'm glad, I'll pay whatever, don't merge us. So I'm just.
I was there. I was one of those taxpayers arguing to stay independent.
Yeah.
I was
So,
there.
I mean, it's like there's.
Yeah.
It's that side of the coin.
And that's not what I'm bringing up.
No,
I'm just saying that maybe the pot we have to go to isn't as big as theirs. You know, that's what I'm saying.
Mr. President, I think my point is, I'm the last person that wants to conflate the project with the 2027 operating budget, but it looks like we have to. Jeff Peters or the guys that brought the doom and gloom about the future into those meetings and said, save all your cash. Save all your cash so that you can offset budget shortfall when Senate Bill 1 rears its ugly head. But if we're saving cash and not maybe going so hard in cash flowing that project, are we considering that in line with what are we going to save the taxpayers 4 cents on that project, or are we going to save 4 cents from a 5 to a 2 on this budget, right? Just things I know you probably have considered, but I just want the room to hear.
And it's not lost on me. I know we've talked
Yeah.
about things, and I guess to say where I'm at, you know, I'm sensitive to people's wages. Yeah, I'd hate for someone to get a pay cut because we didn't give them at least cost of living, you know. And for the trustee's point that it doesn't affect the building project, we can't save the money if we go lower. And I feel like, you know, from what I've seen, and I said it at a meeting once, like from the people that showed up and are watching, they support the fire department. And I'm pretty sure they would want the people that call on them in the middle of the night to be adequately compensated. So, I mean, I know we've had some personal discussions about the percentages, but through tonight's conversation, I gotta say I'm happy to land on the 4% at this point, personally. And I think that's a happy median, right? I know we got a 5 here, but we got a 4, so that's where I'm at. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
I would agree with 4. But if I need food, I'm coming to your house.
His house, right? Come on, Benny, you got it.
I'll come to every one of your houses. But yeah,
Part of it is going to see what kind of the overall budget. So outside of just positions, that's I think our biggest expense is salaries. But what other projects I think are coming up that we may need to spend more money on. So this is a portion of the budget, but until the next meeting, we haven't seen the full picture, right? So, we haven't seen a request if there are going to be requests for, upgraded apparatus or equipment or anything like that, or things here in the trustee's office. We're looking at this, adding a position here that will come from benefits as well. And so I just keep seeing this cost go up. I don't think we can do anything about the judge's salary. I think I do agree with what the trustee has pulled together on that, only because we have really no control over what the judge makes. I mean, it's set by statute and how the state Supreme Court justices are paid, and it's a percentage of that and blah, blah, blah. So I agree there, probably that 145 there. With the judge's salary. Now, Mr. Trustee, what is the 105, 505 on the footnotes outside of your salary?
That's my current salary, which will remain the same.
Okay, I thought because I see 2026 actual is 100,000, 505.
Did I miss? Well, I may have
So that's why I was looking
had
at
a typo. So it'll remain the same as it currently is.
Okay, I saw that 5,000. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, let me.
I mean, I believe you if that's what you make. I believe you.
It is 100,505.
Okay,
So that is
okay,
a typo.
Okay. So over there. Okay, so on the right side it should say 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so remaining the same. Yep, and you've done that now for a few years as well, and have not taken that raise, nor has the board.
Right.
And so I guess that's again where I look at it, and increasing tax rates across the board. If I can save somebody some money, that's what I would do. So I cannot get behind 4%. So yep.
This isn't really locked in tonight either, right? Like he's saying, we haven't really seen the entirety of the budget.
No, I mean, yeah, we can make some adjustments, and again, that's where we built a couple of build-up days in there. I mean, in the cycle or in the schedule. I mean, I will tell you, we're pretty much looking at most everything flat except that we can't control. We're suggesting, based upon the insurance folks, a 10% increase. Now, I will tell you, and I hope to get with them next week and meet with them, but that doesn't include a new $5 million building, whatever insurance we have to cover for construction stuff here. Building corporation, they need some liability stuff, probably should have already enacted. A utility recently got a pretty sizable increase that may come down, but I and another employee went into that utilities calculator one day and kind of did a couple of 3 months of our home bills. And frankly, and that more translates to the township assistance stuff, is, those we're looking at about a 13% per month increase. We ran this building 3 times over, and that's looking about an 18% month.
If we do what with this building? Sorry, I'm sorry.
We plugged in the
plugged in the numbers for this. Sorry. Okay.
And that's X month to X month, regardless year. I mean, frankly, there's a lot of variables that can come into play in our utilities here, right? I mean, we get a decent January. Seasonal is one thing. We get a decent January where the highs are 50s and the lows are accommodating, and we get a January that's 0 and the lows are accommodating. You get a month of 10 runs a day or run ones a day, and those doors opening and rushing that heat out and then rushing it back, then the stuff running to get it back caught up. I can tell you the ITA dues are going up about $4,000 or $5,000. Our software vendor for our computer programs going up from about $6,000 to about $11,000, based upon what they've already told us. So there are some increases we're going to have to adjust it to do.
Point well taken. And may reiterate may reinforce my point.
Well, I get it. I more than get it.
Yeah.
Well, and we don't need to vote on
At
this
the
tonight
end,
either, do we?
well, like I said, I guess I need something to plug in to present to you guys in a couple, 3 weeks, whatever the math is. And I'd rather, I guess, I don't know how to say it, rather go, I don't know. I just like that. I guess I need some direction.
Well, like I said, I mean, I
I've
go
heard
ahead.
I guess I've heard as low as a 1 and as much as a 4.
I think with all the parts that we have discussed tonight, there's a lot to consider. On one hand, we've got fiscal responsibility to consider, as Board Member Bond mentioned. On the other hand, as the trustee mentioned, if we go too low, we don't have room to go up next year, even if we wanted to, without going into reserves. So that is definitely something to consider.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
We've got, then there's competitiveness, the perf contributions. We've, as mentioned, we've got that to consider as well. And I think probably the simplest, most sensible answer to balance all those things would be to match that COLA, at least match it, line on around that 3.6%, 3.5. And I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, as the trustee just said, there's other costs that are going to go up, and so this just further inflates the budget.
Because folks have got a lot of tax things going on right now, not just in the township, but it's going to hurt.
Yep. I do also agree with your human resources generalist of making that 70,000 instead of 75. So I don't know what the consensus of the rest of the board is, but
Well, I could do just a couple of things. I mean, again, these once the fire department stuff gets set, that's kind of set. But I mean, again, they're maximum, and the salary ordinance resolution, you recall, does say maximums.
but can they receive overtime beyond that?
Who?
Firefighters.
But that's already in that budget.
That's in that budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be
And that's a very, based on I pretty much run the pay sheets here. So I see the overtime payouts every time we pay them, totals. We've done very well since 2024.
Thank you, Chief.
We have actually, we budgeted a very safe amount in overtime for personnel every year, and we do very well in that line.
Okay.
And we have since Kelly days.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thank you.
But again, that's one of those areas where I argue about a contingency, because again, just a couple, 3 years ago, we had 15 people at one time for several weeks on light duty for various injuries on and off, and then you're backfilling them with overtime people. So it's
I think it's worth noting, if you can't see that in your information, or if you haven't been able to decipher it, our injury prevention initiatives have, along with the Kelly days and the overtime, it all goes hand in hand. Our work conference have gone in our favor heavily the last into next year.
It's
So
really
we're
helpful.
actually in line for a couple $100,000 savings.
Yeah.
From the 26 budget into 27, just in work comp.
15% is usually the usual recommendation.
Yeah.
Versus the 10.
Okay.
If I may, And I don't know if this is where you were actually mentioning it, you mentioned the word competitive.
Yes.
You know, that's another consideration we have to, bring into account. We've worked very hard to get ourselves, I think, to the point where we are within our constraints competitive. When you start taking steps the other way, no one's forced to work here. They're not able to go somewhere else. And then when you get the reputation of not being competitive and people leaving, you also get the harder difficulty of finding people to stay. We've been very good, and again, I advocate it's as much or more from the fringe and the benefits and stuff. But I remember in the budget prep work I did with my predecessor, one of the first things, one of the things he said was EMS personnel will leave over a nickel, right? So we've had, I think, no one leave this year. I could be wrong. Some of our folks have been here since, about half since I've come on board in the 6 years or whatever it's been to this point. So when you think about compensation, those are, I don't know how you put dollar figures necessarily to them, but they are tangible things that need to be considered.
Well, I agree with that for the most part, but I would certainly hope, as the chief mentioned, that, the difference between 4, 5, or 3.5% is not going to be the one and only thing it takes for someone to leave. I would hope, there's a lot more involved in that because, this is what our U.S. Armed Forces are getting. This is what the military is getting.
What's that?
3.6%.
The COLA raise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I
They're in it for the money.
It wasn't when I was in, but it's meant a lot more to me than the money is. And I don't think that's the case for any of our firefighters.
Right.
I think it's a calling.
Those guys on USS Abraham Lincoln have been out to sea for what, like nearly a year or something like that.
And my point is more like
Crazy. Yeah.
extremes,
Right.
1 to 5.
Sure.
Right?
That would that's going to make a big difference. I think for the most part, from what I've gathered from most of the board, we've come off of the floor of 1, somewhat for the most part. I'm just not sure that I could justify to the residents, why we aren't pulling back at least some when they come and say, I got the wheel tax, I got this, I got that, and why do I keep getting taxed?
Right.
One speaking point for you guys, if you don't already use it to your constituents, is kind of to what Jason was saying about our EMS division. You are not going to get better EMS service in Marion County. I can guarantee you that than you're getting as a resident of Decatur Township. And that's because of how well we treat our EMS people, how well we pay our EMS people, and how, for the most part, content they are to be here. Happy employees are the best employees. And we're fully staffed in the EMS division, and you're not, no matter what happens within Marion County, and none of our neighbors can argue that their EMS service is better than what you guys are getting, aside from what IEMS's problems are, and kind of taking some of that service from you guys sometimes.
Yeah, it's great. Our people pay IEMS,
that's an issue,
and they steal our ambulances.
That's an issue that we have to continue to try to figure out.
It's unbelievable.
So that
Why'd you have to bring that up?
this conversation impacts those.
Raises my
We
temperature.
talked about the fire. We've been talking about the firefighters all night, right? This conversation impacts those 24 employees also.
Yeah.
27 U.S. employees.
They double dip us, and then they take what we pay for ourselves. So anyway, I'm gonna say I'm proud of the board for taking the stance we did tonight. And I know we had personal conversations, and I hope people don't think I'm like flip-flopping on things we talked about to each other one-on-one. I think we pushed back, this is where I am personally in the end. I think people deserve to make a wage, and I think they should at least get a COLA raise. So that's where I would start. At least 3.6%, and then why not just round it to 4 and make it clean? I mean, I think 5 would be great, but I think we're within our responsibility to do a 4% raise. Sounds like that would make them satisfied, and it's fair. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
I think I agree with the 3.6, the COLA, as you mentioned.
Is that what the military is getting, the 3.6?
Well, that was just an example to, explain a little better, but at least so it's just a matter of trying to balance some responsibility to constituents while at the same time, providing, making sure that nobody's taking a pay cut.
Yeah, so there's no pay cut if it's at 3.6. There's no pay raise, but like I mentioned earlier, there's this like structure that doesn't exist in other professions where you can get promoted and make more money if you like, right? I mean, I'm not being rude saying that, but I mean,
We've got a multi-level pay scale.
right. So, you're not capped at this. You can better yourself and move up in the department if you'd like to make some more money. But at least you're not giving a pay cut if we do 3.6%.
Agreed.
I'm inclined to go to 4, but I mean, I would.
It would be easier to think
Yeah.
going to the 4.
What do you think, Jared?
I don't see how it's any easier. Plugging it into a computer, it's
Right.
not having a slide rule. I can't agree to those.
Would you be all right with the COLA?
No, but if 3 of you are, then there's a majority, and we'll play with that.
Okay.
Just a real quick raw number, not advocating, just because mine's going to be as much more public in the whole world. The 4% versus the 3% is a $400 difference.
Then
Using my base, it's the 3.6 is 36.18, and the 4% would be 40.20, which is a $402 difference.
Just need on one versus.
I just use mine because it's
per month or per paycheck?
percent increase. That's the dollar amount difference.
The annual difference.
Yeah, annual.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Annual.
okay.
Yes, I'm
Gotcha.
sorry. Annual. Yeah.
Okay.
Annually, it's $400.
Between 4 and 5, not between 1 and 5.
Between 3.6 and 4.
And 4, sorry. Thank you.
It's going to be about 55 grand total for a half year. 4.4%.
Is that the last point of discussion here?
So,
That's
Well, we
the
talked-
only thing on the agenda.
Well, the only thing as far as this, we talked about the HR generalist. We decided 70 grand on that.
Okay.
If you're okay with that. And then the question is 3.6 or 4. Is there any other detail here we need to hammer out?
No, just figure out 3.6, 4, or 1, or whatever.
All right. Like I said, I want to see our firefighters at least not get a pay cut. So I'm willing to go to the 4%. If you guys are. I guess where I'm getting at is to make a motion to make a consensus. Unless there's any other details we need to hammer out, or we can do this in one motion or one.
I'll make a motion for
Okay.
4%.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Anybody else? We have 2 ayes.
Opposed?
All those opposed?
No.
No. No.
You're opposed?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're split. So are we a hung jury or we gotta go back? Let's go to the 3.6.
Well, Mr. Chair, state law requires the trustee to make a tie vote.
Oh, first time ever.
Yeah. So my vote will be yay at 4%.
Lessons in government this evening.
I wanted to ask, while we're still talking, you do a lot of the grants and everything. Do you, I know before we heard what grants the fire chief was applying for and what they got. Whenever you do that, can you let us know?
Yeah,
I know that would
Yeah, absolutely. Currently, we've applied for one AFG, another, it's in the safer category with AFG, which is
Oh, is this
assistant
the-
firefighter grants, but it's not for personnel, it's for equipment. And obviously with FEMA shutting down
Greg's
6-7
gonna
months
wish he'd have
ago,
been
we're
here.
pushed back. But we should be notified here soon.
Are you listening,
We
Greg?
just received the second edition of Mobile Integrated Health Grant with $50,000, so that whole thing.
I do remember reading this at some point. I just totally slipped my mind
MIH
because we never had to do
cycle,
it.
or,
Tie votes.
deposits, so we are definitely getting funding from some of those sources.
Okay.
Once I get information from those applications, I'll push to the board.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I've been meaning to ask about them.
Yep, absolutely. We're all the time pushing forward with FEMA and operating out of FEMA Go. And they're busy, for sure.
Is that agenda item then complete? We're done with the salary workshop?
As far as I know,
Okay.
everything should be
All right.
ready to rock.
Chugging along. Mr. Bond.
Yeah, so I have a resolution, and it will come into effect, I think, more at our next meeting, but just wanted to make sure that the trustee kind of saw where we were looking at a few items. So within Indiana Code, the same section that we just used with townships, and discussing the tie there. 36.6.6.11B provides the township board may require the township trustee to further itemize an estimate that's not sufficiently itemized. So I've created a resolution here. I think it will be resolution 05. Well, I'll have to look at the number.
We're in the tens.
We're on the tens now. Yeah. There's a resolution to buy the building. That's right.
We can, I'm sorry to interrupt. We can approve this or do
Yep.
whatever we
And
want
then-
with it tonight
and
and
then
tag it later.
Figure out the number. Yeah. So it lays out a couple of, I say requests of the board, of the trustee from the board, as allowed by law. There's not a lot we can tell you what to do, Jason, Mr. Trustee, but this is just one way that we can require the trustee to further itemize. And so that's what this resolution is requesting, for further itemization of the budget related to the fund department program account line item, for personnel positions, for the cause of specific purposes of expenditures, I think related to professional and contractual services that we know that may be coming up as well, for equipment, capital, and material purchases, the type and purpose of the anticipated expenditure and the amount included, and to the extent, and as the township executive, you have some requirement with the court, but within that purview, if the court needs to do this, then we can deal with that in a different way. But to the extent an estimate for the court is not sufficiently itemized, we would also request that itemization. And again, I know as separately elected officials, us, you, and the judge, there may not be a way between you and the court to require that, but that is what we would be requesting. And so here is the resolution, and Mr. Chair, I would move that we pass this resolution of the Township Board requesting further itemization of estimates of expenditures for the 2027 budget.
Any discussion?
Well, I just point of clarification, because I think I heard two different. Is your intention to introduce this tonight or to vote on it tonight?
Introduce it and vote on it tonight.
Go ahead.
I mean, you can all do it, I guess, but I have concern with introduction and voting, particularly on it tonight, in the regard that it was not advertised or noticed.
An agenda item doesn't have to be. We can change and review the agenda as we go.
I don't conceptually have a problem with this, but again, it hasn't been presented to the public to have review. It wasn't noticed for them to have the opportunity to have a say on it. So, and frankly, I mean, I think everything you're asking for, if you turn around again and look at the minute book, has been traditionally presented year after year after year. Frankly, anyway, it's all in there.
Mm-hmm. So then there shouldn't be a problem in enacting them at all.
And nor did I say it was.
I agree with that.
My concern is in the disclosure and the transparency to the public.
Well, it'll be public. Are you saying it's not legal, or it's just?
I'm not.
Because I think we can
don't-
pass a resolution at will, can't we?
My concern is, I don't know if I'm saying legal. My concern is in that regard, though, if it wasn't noticed, then and that's the importance of having the notice out 48 hours before the meeting, just so that the public can know what's on the agenda.
But
And then they have the opportunity to speak to any item on that agenda, as the state law does mandate.
so state law and the public access counselor have only ever said that you have to notice meetings 48 hours at a time. You only have to post the agenda prior to the meeting. That can be 5 minutes before the meeting. And so the board gets to determine those items on the agenda. And at the beginning of this meeting, we added this item to the agenda in a motion to amend the budget, or excuse me, amend the agenda. So that is, that is the notice. So legal requirement has been met. There is no legal requirement that an entire agenda has to be published before then, but it can be amended by the board at the meeting, and that's what occurred at the beginning of this meeting. And now there's a motion on the floor for the approval of this resolution.
Yeah, and if Member Bond would like to introduce this, it would probably need to be in effect before the next meeting, because that's the budget introduction. Because that's what this is targeting.
It is.
Right. So if we were to say, let's introduce it tonight and vote it on next time, then that just pushes the entire budget process forward, right? Because you won't be,
amended, I suppose.
this won't be in effect by the time you introduce the budget at the next meeting.
Again, as I said, without word for word, because this is the first time I've seen this, frankly.
Well, it was
I've
emailed.
been-
It was emailed to you earlier today. I know you had some
Well,
said you were out of the office. I get that, but
Right.
it was
I mean-
emailed to you.
Well, I mean, I will say editorially, I've been, had demands placed on me that even drafts be sent weeks in advance, and at one point you emailed it, like I said, the last half of the afternoon for sure, so from 2 o'clock on, it wasn't sent. And
Yeah.
whatever, so this is the absolute first time I've read it.
Yep.
So, line by line or something, I don't necessarily have anything that I've seen specifically that I object to it. Again, I think it's all presented to you anyway, so it's not that big a deal. I just want to make sure that like say, for whatever that may come back legally or public perceptionally, if that's the right description, is handled
Oh.
correctly.
I'm inclined as chairman to allow it to go up for a vote tonight, and if you find or somebody finds it needs to be readdressed, then we can do it at that point. Everybody's okay with that?
Done.
We're okay with it.
Because, in the end, I didn't think you would really have an issue with any of this because it's sort of what you do for us anyway, and,
You get everything that's ever been, at least by me presented, has always been
Right.
line by line.
Can I ask you a question?
yes, sir.
Just for clarification, I'm not reading the resolution, but is this just, we'd like to ask you for deeper transparency in the weeds of the budget
Yeah, what was your,
process and plan?
Yes,
Like, not categories, but lines within categories?
yes, sir.
Well, I'll speak for myself. I do not personally have any issue with
I didn't think you
full
would.
transparency from
Yeah.
any section.
I thought this was a healthy thing, to be honest.
Yeah, everything we do is on
Yeah.
a needs assessment basis, so
Yep.
we collectively meet for that.
And I think even if, maybe not, I don't know if there's time to do it before the next meeting, if this board wanted to work on the 2 exec session with a budget and get into it, I would speak for the chief.
And the chief, he did offer that
Okay.
to me. I don't know
I'd
if
be
he
happy
offered
to
it to anybody else.
I'd be
He
happy to
did
participate.
send me an email the other day and then he called. I was out at State Fair, but I did call and wanted to talk about that as well, the budget workshop. And so I appreciate that, Chief, of you offering that. Looks like this will be resolution number 12. Number 11 was the purchase of the building. No, take it back. Sorry. Yes, that was the purchase of the building.
We racked up some resolutions. that
Was
night.
was number 11. So it looks like that's the last one in here. So
So this will be 12.
I'll call this one 12. Yeah, you guys did 10. Yeah, several. I mean, 10 was where it was appropriated. 11 was to reimburse the project with bond proceeds. That's what 11 was. Sorry. So this will be 12. 2026-12.
All right. So resolution has been presented. Is there further discussion on it? Take a motion to approve.
Was there a second? Sorry.
Or you
I moved.
moved. Is there a second on the resolution?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Cindy.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, resolution number 2026-12 is approved and adopted.
You want this copy to be the signed one that we do?
Our board members, yeah, any of them. Yep. Are board members interested in doing an exec session workshop before the next meeting on, what is it, September 1st? Yep. Just to get a glimpse, a window into how they're crafting the budget that we get presented with, that they've offered, the chiefs have offered.
When do you guys usually do it?
When,
All these are all-
so we do it all year, however, the 2 workshops we bring the full staff in is usually in April and August. That way you guys have notification into the fall or October, so you can vote on it. So I do 2 workshops with everybody. Throughout the year, though, we're constantly monitoring the budget, making amendments and changes as needed.
You can't.
My exec staff,
I think it's black.
myself,
I don't
Chief Johnson,
if
Chief
you want it black.
Chief Longridge, we meet weekly to discuss the budget figures, and it's a reoccurring, ongoing process.
Sure.
I'd like to, but next year since August is already here.
What's that? What? I'm
Sit
sorry.
in with your budget.
Oh, yeah, well,
Next
the next one, whoever the chief will be probably in the springtime.
Whoever the chief will be.
Yeah, well, I mean, just, look into the future.
Is that a slip? I'm just kidding.
No. Usually April would be that next big workshop.
Yeah.
Per se. But yeah, absolutely. They're always open. I apologize that we didn't get that pushed out earlier, that they're open. We have what we call I call it continuity of government and a continuity of operations that we created within our administration. And one of the things is that's budgeting 101. So we go through grant management, we go through how to form the budget, we go through each division, each deputy chief and division chief within those respective branches and divisions sends a needs assessment, and then from there we break it out by needs versus wants, and then we score it. So that scale comes from when I was at the state in charge of the grant management program. That is where that comes from. So we adopted that philosophy and brought here to our fiscal management, as I call it. That's also in the continuity of operations.
Thank you.
Did that make sense?
Yeah.
That's like a heavy view of what we do in those workshops to elaborate on the budget and push that information out. So everybody's on the same page.
All right. Moving on in the agenda, we come to announcements. Anything for the good of township? Board member Hibbler's mother passed away. I believe the viewing is tomorrow, and the funeral is Thursday. And the board purchased something for that, right?
Yeah, I got
At
a
least
wind
we
chime.
pooled some money together. Okay. So there's that. Any other announcements to note, trustee?
I guess in that regard, I have as for much of an announcement that it is regrettably, Bert Rosen's wife passed away. Bert is, I think, one of the founders, if I recall, of the fire department back in the 1950s. And regardless, he was one of the original merit commission members himself until he retired, give or take a couple of years ago. So that I would just note that when we're making similar announcements, a dedicated, someone's dedicated their life and work to the service of the township, and particularly the township fire department. Lost his spouse over the weekend as well, or late last week, whatever.
Alrighty.
We have 6 also recruits graduating Saturday, 2 p.m., 2 to 4. I sent the invite out a couple weeks ago. It's downtown at the Union Hall, local 416 Union Hall.
On Saturday?
On Mass Ave. Yep, Saturday the 22nd at 2 p.m. Again, these guys have excelled. These guys have excelled beyond, I don't want to say what's anticipated, because we always anticipate the best, but they have excelled beyond expectations. Recently, today, I think the last one, not our recruits, but the last one in the EMT program, which we have 2 from the airport in there as well, they passed the practicals. So they're not graduating with us, but our 6 all collectively passed the first time, so that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We had high-level instructors, high-intense instructors. They did a great job. We're proud of them, and we want to honor them on Saturday at 2 p.m. downtown at the Union Hall. 745 Mass Ave, is that what that is?
No, that's 748.
748.
What'd you say, 745?
Is it across the street?
Oh, no, yeah.
Sorry.
45 across. Sorry.
Okay.
I think it's 748.
Sorry. 748.
I'll look that up on the map.
745 is across the street, and yeah, it's
Oh.
A local pub.
Not the same place you and Trustee were talking earlier.
I'll be in DC at the IndyCar race. I'm sorry.
Oh, you are going.
Yeah, I got tickets to that.
Nice.
Yep.
Sounds fun.
Yep.
And thank you for your support of our recruits. They appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
Great. All right. Well, my stomach's growling. So, anything else to do before
Taco Bell.
Move we do adjourn.
this meeting's adjourned? Thank you very much.
You know,